Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
It's a pure moment of joy and pleasure to see everybody here. We made it all through the daylight saving change. Maybe that's why it's called daylight saving. It saves us from something, somewhere. But that being said, as I work with you, the words that we'll share are not only just for you, but they are just as greatly for me as well. And I speak with inspiration, so it's all Spirit-led, and we'll discover that. Setting up tone to the conversation, the expressions that dwelled within me were emotions. And that subject itself is like, it's a bottomless pit where you have to explore and then you can jump in and then you'll be lost there forever. But these were emotions. But before we really get into the part of emotions, I would like all of us to take a journey into how we understand this world or our universe that have come about. Most of us would understand through the chapter of Genesis and on forward, because that is some or most of our foundational backdrop of understanding. So within my own household, we studied Bible several times. I've read it cover to cover under the force of my mother's presence, but I'm grateful because it allowed me to sit there for a chapter or two every day and go through that journey. But then life came along, and I would have been like 10 years old. There was an animated series of show called The World of History, and that was totally different than what those chapters of Genesis led us to. But as I'm sitting within the conversation with Spirit, we are wanting to discover that part of journey. From one to the other, all the stories that have led us to understand where we sit today. Scientifically, we can say the discovery of the wheel was the greatest invention. All the changes that went on in the universe through time periods, historical timelines, they were all great stories that has allowed us to grow where we are today. All the journeys that the universe has taken has changes written all over them. Everything changes, everything changes, everything changes. But what I was made to reflect upon, what has not changed is the essence of the emotion. Just imagine whoever discovered the wheel first time, we only hear this block of stone rolling down the hill, turning to be a wheel, right? We had no idea if somebody got caught underneath it, they got broken leg, broken arm, what went on. We don't know those details, but I would understand every invention, everything, there is some sort of sacrifice somewhere. There is a painful story behind the backdrop of sense of joy. But pain is an emotion. Sense of joy is an emotion. Sense of discovery comes through a sense of emotion. So when life has changed through bajillion years, these emotions have stayed with us consistently. Our lives have grown, families have expanded, societies have expanded, but these emotions have not changed. You cannot say joy was defined differently in the beginning of our life than what it is today. You cannot say pain can be differentiated from that experience to this experience. So as I thought more about emotions to understand, Spirit was just moving me back and forth in time and timelines to go back and feel what would have felt like to be a caveman, you know, to deal with dinosaurs and to deal with big gruesome animals and life conditions with a little wood block to take care of things, or little stones to chip away and create home spaces or create cover and clothing. There was a sense of emotions there, of safety and protection and so forth. There's life as it progresses has always shown us the emotions are consistent. So we sit here in today's time period where we're seeing polarities in much bigger way. there is a big movement where people are becoming more self-aware, more self-conscious, working on themselves, working on their upliftment movement. At the same time, we're seeing the opposite spectrum of polarity, where to be able to express emotions or what's going within, the other modalities that are contrast to this one spectrum is also there. So we have recently gone through some painful situations that are evolving in our society as social examples and social experiences. But we still cannot separate the emotions, what it feels today, to what it could have felt in year 0 or year 1. Those emotions are same. The further Spirit led me in, so this was a great example. How many of us here have made soap bubbles? So have you ever observed the soap bubble itself? You know, it has a little sheen to it. The colors change. Everything moves within it. If it's a nice density, it has the ability to stay suspended for a longer period of time than others. And as I looked at this thought, that was very amazing, because that's how emotions are. Not every emotion has the same veil of experience. They have different veils of experience, and it's different for everybody. Somebody can have a 5-second sense of happiness with same experience, where others can carry on for months on, just thriving on it. So we all have different ways. But as Spirit led me into that soap bubble, I found this is how it is, this is how it is, this is how it probably feels when I'm in my own zone and nobody has any idea what's going on the inside of my bubble, why I stay happy and joyful and be able to see things differently, because it's my own bubble. I'm not in yours and you're not in mine, but you have your own bubble. And thus, every now and then, we fail to understand what we may not be seeing in somebody else's life is because this sheen, the layer, is there to occlude our visions to be able to see through clearly. Because emotions are energy. They transmute as energy. And when they go out, they create an auric field change in our own bodies. The furthermore I pushed on this feeling of emotions with the help of Spirit, I was made to discover within my own self, because that's where my learning curve is. If I cannot experience it for myself, it's hard to put words to it. And as I discovered this emotion, this morning at 1:30 in the morning, what it felt like was somebody standing at the end of my bed. And I had no idea who this individual is, but I know there was a block of energy that didn't feel like my own surrounding space. And as I woke up with a sense of grief. And when I touched in with this grief, I had to just take a nice deep breath, step outside of my bed and said, I'm just going to palpate this feeling. And once again, this emotion of grief was around me. I wasn't sad, but I can palpate grief. My heart center was feeling that sense of grief. I paused, and this is what Spirit provided me to understand. When we are wanting to separate our emotions from one to the other, discerning where we are or where we are needing to be, we have to use pauses. Just like if you go for a 5-course meal, they just don't bring everything all at the same time. They give you courses and they give you breaks so that you can taste them on your palates. If you have been a construction worker, you just cannot put up cement and put things right over it. Sometimes you have to take time to settle it, to cure it. Those in the construction field can describe this better than I can. But everything has a curing time. If you're doing an artwork, you have to go through phases. If it is a mixed media art, you just cannot do things right on top of each other. So these are, what Spirit was showing me, are pauses. So when we go from one phase of our life, from childhood to the teen years and the adult, all these things are overlapped with a certain amount of chemical pauses within our developmental processes. But as I sat there in the corner of my bed, all I wanted to understand, what is this all about? I had a beautiful time Friday, Saturday, just being with Spirit 24/7. But what this was allowed me to understand. Pausing and taking that time to reflect can change the rhythm and the quality of our experience. The moment I recognized this, I was at ease. I recognized what it was for me, and I moved past it. So as I explore these two observations of emotion and pause, I would like to welcome everybody on your own journey as you sit here, because life will never take these emotions away from you. If you want it, great. If you don't want it, they're still going to be there with you. We have no choice. Just like imagine a journey that we see for other individuals from their birth and going through changes all the way, maybe seeing them part from us in that time period, or a significant part of the journey we experience with each other. And when those separations happen, we do feel the emotional changes within ourselves. We do feel the sense of loss, sense of grief, sense of joy, sense of pleasure of just simply knowing somebody for that couple of meetings and understanding this parting is nothing but segueing a small pause in our journey and moving us to the next best step. How wonderful this thought was as I woke up second time to get ready for church, and I'm still in the sitting with the power of Spirit, and Spirit is saying this is how life goes on at the afterlife. These emotions continue, and those are the emotions when we come across to people, that's how we are first recognized. Ooh, this feels like a father, this feels like a mother, this has a certain depth of connection through our journey. And that is one more reason for me to fall in love with spiritualism all over and over again, because the ongoing progression of my own soul's growth, just like yours, you're sitting here to receive something that is greater than where you were last Sunday, maybe last night, maybe this morning. But as I sat there within that experience, I had to recognize the emotions are what hit us first before we say, ooh, I have more details, I'm going into the depth of conversation. But our spirit, as it touches upon us, it comes through a sentiment, it comes through an emotion. How am I feeling? How the sense of passing is. Our clairsentience works primarily in the forefield than anything else. So as I'm going through the motion for myself, we sang these two beautiful hymns, the first one and the second one, and here I am such overjoyed. It's like we are celebrating life in the summerland up on the spirit side of life. When we cross over, we just continue to float away and do our own thing. We may have a discernment of emotions a little bit more distinctively up there because we don't have any judgment going across as we have to heavily deal with it in the physical life. But we're just floating away, doing our thing. We're continuing our progression. Yet when we have to connect with our loved ones, we connect through grief, a sense of joy, a sense of aha, which stimulates more emotions within ourselves. And as we push this emotion forward, it allows us to discover newer and newer and newer things. I would like to read from the book called Becoming a Spiritualist. This is summarizing to what you would understand better, because we are all in this journey. Chapter number 12 is titled Inner Vision. And the first few lines of this first paragraph is, there is always a new beginning, and every day is a new moment in the great eternity of God. The things of yesterday have already passed, and out of those experiences of yesterday, we may build a structure more beautiful today. As far as the mistakes of yesterdays are concerned, we must naturally remember the lessons learned. I think this line was far more profound than the entire paragraph. Whatever we have done, us growing up have always been allowed to see through yes, no, good, bad, favorable, unfavorable. We are always had to evaluate that. And the more we evaluate our actions, our choices, our decisions through those polarities, the more we get caught up into the outcomes from that point forward. If we see this experience as what it was and what I can take from there, and using it as a stepping stone to go into the next phase of our life, life would be much more simple and beautiful, because it would allow us discernment with that systematic pause of saying, I will not allow myself to be judged even by myself. I will just take this as an experience. And then segue into the next best phase for yourself. Just simply taking a step, an action, a choice that will change your trajectory into a pure positive manner can allow you to put yourself back into where you need to be. I am no different than all of you. I'm still in my skin and bones just like anybody here, but I notice those detours can be really exciting, because my detours have definitely shown me a great sense of exploration, a great sense of aha. Without those detours, maybe life would have become really dull and boring. But to understand, to be able to enjoy each and every detour that is presented in front of you, physical, emotional, spiritual, of any kind, start enjoying those detours, because everything is temporary, everything is going through change. And nothing that is now will be the same in the next moment or the next experience. Spiritualism, going back in time, up to this point, you would understand the spirit language changes just like anything else. You cannot expect today's loved ones in this time period, in the 21st century, those that are passing will talk like they are in the 18th century. They probably won't. But we have to keep updating our vocabulary so that we can relate to them. That is also a change that is affected in our journey. I just had this beautiful conversation yesterday. A demonstrator was saying she had no idea what an Apple was, or an iPhone was, or a BlackBerry was. And she shared this experience. The Spirit was giving him the fruit phone. That was a BlackBerry in this time, in that particular time segment. But this experience of sharing was, what was great about it was, it allowed me to see things from my own sense. I have no clue of certain terminologies and concept, what it is, what it feels like. But if I connect with the emotions, my clairvoyance becomes much clearer and closer to me. If I see if an object is giving me pleasure, what I'm seeing in my mind's eye is drawing me close to the Spirit. There's a reciprocation of that energy. It is same here. When you start to enjoy where you are, no matter what it is handful or hand not so full, if you enjoy that journey from that perspective, it will always be fulfilling no matter where we are. Spiritualism keeps resetting my own philosophy, because every time I feel, oh, this feels great. No, there is one thing more for me to understand, philosophize and experience through my own contact. And it's just a great way of exploring and keep that adventure going on for myself. So as I summarize this conversation with all of you here, where you are, if you allow yourself to be really sincere and honest with your own emotions, not to push them back, not to suppress them, not to hide. Maybe those emotions that you're getting within your gut, in your solar plexus, in your heart center, will allow you to see where you need to be. They may allow you to assess where you are, and then you can take from where you need to be. You have to pay attention. Without paying attention, it's almost like being on a conveyor belt in a factory just going through the motions. You have to step up and go on the cheese grater, what I call cheese grater of life, where you have to palpate where you are. That'll give you some bruises, it'll toughen you up. And that will be a matter to talk about when we sit still. What we went through, that may inspire somebody down the road, we don't know. But investigate your emotions, see where you are, because they're there for a reason. Thank you for being here.